Well, let's bring in Mayimanyane Women's Support Centre to weigh in on these developments around the Thabo Bester escape, as well as the role of police in ensuring safety for their victims. Executive Director Dr Lesley Ann Foster now joins us via Zoom. Dr Lesley, good afternoon. Thank you for your time here on the SABC.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
All right, so we're obviously following the latest developments around the rearrest and court appearance of Thabo Bester as well as Dr Nandipa Magudumana. And we also want to explore the impact that all of this is going to have on the victims at large. To date, in your opinion, has government, the various departments, done enough to ensure the safety of victims, perhaps even from a communication standpoint and reassurance? How would you weigh in on that? Dr. Lesley, I am going to repeat the question, perhaps just to see if we are having some technical challenges. We need to reconnect with you. All right, it seems like we've lost that connection with Dr. Lesley. Let's see if we can get her back on the line for now. We're obviously exploring the impact that the latest developments is having on the Thabo Bester case that's obviously unfolded. We saw him appearing in court today. Dr. Lesley Ann Foster is going to be speaking about the impact that these developments have had on the victims at large, perhaps ensuring their safety, how we mitigate against re-victimization amongst many other concerns that have arisen at this point. So as we try to get her back on the line, okay, I do believe she's back on the line. Let's try this again. Dr. Lesley Ann, I believe you're back. I'm going to just welcome you again.
Yes,
Thank you for your time here on the SABC. We're looking at the role of government in ensuring the safety of victims, whether it's with regards to communication or even just reassurance at this point. How would you weigh in on what's transpired on that front?
Well, I think there's been a whole chain of failures here, that demonstrates the challenges that victims of sexual violence face. First of all, the non-disclosure of the escape of Thabo Bester is the biggest challenge, I think, or the biggest injustice to the survivors of his crimes, because the women have spoken out about the tremendous fear that they have. And from the reports, it appears that the actual escape of Thabo Bester last year already was not disclosed. And so there was a constant threat to the women that were lucky enough to survive the attacks that he had perpetrated against them. So I think that's one of the things. They speak about the fact that they are constantly living a nightmare, fearful of what the kind of retaliation can be against them. Now that we know that there have been a series of crimes that have been allegedly committed by Thabo Bester and his cohorts, the fear that the women have as to how, whether they would be attacked again, whether their lives are in danger. I mean, these are very real fears. And I think that, we fail survivors when we don't provide them with the correct protection, when we're not giving them enough support, when they're not getting mental health care. There's a whole chain of challenges that they face. I think also in this case, SAPS, we've seen that there've been many lapses. There've been a complete lack of due diligence followed in this case, right from the time of the escape, the incorrect reporting that it was his body that was found, and in one way that might have given some comfort to the women that, he wouldn't be attacking them again. But he obviously also has a very vast network of people that he's been working with from the time that he was imprisoned, during that and post that. And those are fears that are very, very real for the survivors right now. And I think, the fact that he's now arrested, that he's back in custody, is in some way, will allay their fears a bit. But they are still in need of great support, because the trauma that these women have faced, both on the actual attacks of sexual violence and then post that, and the ongoing saga, which the whole country is now witnessing, that is having a serious impact on their mental health. So we really need to put better better support in for these women than what they're getting at the moment. And I want to say that this is a very high profile case, so obviously it's getting a lot of attention, and the women are likely to get some support. But we have thousands of these cases where rape survivors will come face to face with the men who have survived them at community level, and there's no support for them. They're not informed, they're not given support, and this is how the country is responding to violence against women at the moment. So there's a very big transformation that needs to happen within the entire criminal justice system, and the social support that we give survivors of this violence. We have to be very cognizant of that fact. We have a national strategic plan now, but it would appear as if the authorities are not paying attention to the guidance that is provided within that national strategic plan as to how to address this. It comes back again to social norms and behaviors, and how we actually view the lives of women. In most cases, survivors of sexual violence are actually ignored. And that's something that we have to focus on a lot more strongly to be able to ensure that we get justice for the people that suffer from sexual violence or as a result of sexual violence.
Yeah, absolutely. You've answered a lot of questions in your one statement. We're looking at the threat to women, how their lives are in danger, particularly those who've been affected by his crimes, the lack of support, the lack of mental health care that is on offer for them at this point. You've highlighted the gaps that have emerged in the system. How do we at this point ensure that there isn't re-victimization as the case continues?
It's going to be very difficult to actually prevent that, because we do not have the systems in place that can ensure that survivors won't be re-victimized again. What I also want to say about this case, which is very important and we often ignore it, is it doesn't only affect the women survivors in this case. It affects all women, because the fear that women now have, because of what has happened to the survivors, and because they see the lack of due diligence in the criminal justice system. It is so graphic in this particular case, but it is present in very many cases of sexual assault. That's why we have very low conviction rates. This is why we have low reporting rates, is because women haven't got trust in it. Well, not just women, but communities haven't got trust in the systems. So we need to strengthen all of the systems across the full criminal justice supply chain, as it were, but also in our civil society, context. And for me, the fact that women are going to be afraid to walk down a street, women are going to be afraid to go out at night because of the threat of violence that this case has highlighted. But as I said, this case highlights it is one high-profile case. What we've got to remember is that there are thousands of cases out there which do not get this kind of visibility, but is happening to survivors, and we're not protecting the survivors adequately enough. And this is where SABC has to step in, has to be providing information, communicating with the survivors on an ongoing basis, so that their fears are in some way reduced. Won't go away, but it will be reduced. And these are the things that we have to strengthen. The whole system needs strengthening. And that's what we have to work on. The National Strategic Plan provides the guidance on how that must happen. Some training has happened, but not enough of it. And the way in which survivors are viewed is a serious impediment to access to justice. That has to be corrected.
Speaking of training, speaking about social norms, assessing social norms and behaviors in relation to how survivors are viewed, is Mayimanyane Women's Support Center going to be offering any support? Will you be working alongside other organizations or with government in this particular case? And if women do need this information, how do they begin to access it so that justice ensues?
Yes. Okay, so Mayimanyane Women's Rights International provides these critical services to women, together with many other women's organizations across the country. We in the Eastern Cape, we have a network called the Women's Equelo Network. There are 116 organizations, community-level organizations that are providing services. So women can access that. There is a national command center on gender-based violence where women can access those free free a toll-free number that they can access. There are many different avenues of support, and it is absolutely critical that they work through women's organizations, because we place their experiences at the center of our responses. Not everybody does that, and certainly some of the government departments are under tremendous pressure, and they're not able to do that. So the women's organizations really form the network of support at community level. There are also victim empowerment programs in the police stations, and they can do that. But to call one of our centers is the best thing to do. Our particular number in the Eastern Cape is 043-743-9169. There is help out there. Women should seek that help, if not through the police, through the women's organizations, through Department of Social Development. They can get support and they can get help.
Dr. Lesley Ann Foster, let's see how this conversation perhaps aids the discussions on the necessary support that is needed for victims at this point, particularly during this high-profile case. But from here on too, thank you for your time here on the SABC, Dr. Lesley Ann Foster.